innovation, blessed individualism, or America's newest team sport. Very quick overview. David knows I collect maps. I've got a few maps here that I think show both the importance of mental models and the ability of a mental model to become not just helpful, but stifling over the passage of time. One of my client organizations, one of the guys who had funded me at Wharton for a decade, said innovation is very easy. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, we're blessed with an employee who always knows what to do. I said, well, give me an example. And he said, okay, one of our competitors rolls out free checking. We're panicked. We're going to lose all the business. He says, announce it also. And they said, we don't have any software. He said, but we will. Just announce free checking. I'll have it running. It's easy. Set the fee to 0. And they said, okay, we can do that. He said, while we're doing that, here's what I want you to do. No minimum balance free checking. And the bank says, oh, no, we'll lose so much money, we won't even get compensating balances. He said, you don't make money on compensating balances. Make it free checking and have a massive pitch towards undergraduates with daddy as co-signer. You can't lose money with no minimum balance. The kids will bounce checks left and right, put on the highest NSF, non-sufficient funds, penalties in the industry. Spectacularly profitable free checking instantly. Okay, I said, well, that's great. What else did he do? They gave me this whole sequence of things. One more quick story. Anybody in the East Coast knows MAC, the sort of East Coast ATM consortium? There were 3 networks in Philadelphia. CashStream, which is dead, Provident, which is the largest independent, and MAC. Provident made an agreement with CashStream, which they never signed, but which was written up. And then he called MAC and said, you're about to go broke, right? And they said, yeah. He said, I really scared you, didn't I? They said, yeah. He said, well, we didn't sign anything yet, but these are my terms for switching. And we have story after story after story. I said, what happens when he retires? And the guy said, I hope I retire first. That is not a sustainable process, but it was really interesting. That's blessedness, and let's see if blessedness moves to blessed teams. This is a mental map. It's actually a physical map. This is the map that Captain Cook brought to the Hawaiian Islands with him. He died there. There are better maps possible. This is the map that Captain Cook left with and his crew left with. We still have it, and I have a copy of it in my office. A good map freezes. This is an early map of New York. The guys know it's pretty preliminary because it's labeled Novi Belgica, New Amsterdam, and New York, waiting to see how it sorts out. It misses a few features that the rest of us think are significant, like the Great Lakes. But it does have an interesting feature. If you look carefully, there is a deer and there are 2 bears in the upper left corner. 4 iterations later, not the same map, not the same map maker, different map, different publisher, different geographic figures, the same deer is in the same place. I mean, that's how you proved it was a real map of New York, New Belgium, New Amsterdam. The deer and the bear were in the right place. That gets pretty dangerous. When maps are wrong, they're lethal. This is a map of the island of California. It has a history, which is the Spanish originally drew it as an island. It was really expensive because they started doing things like dropping Jesuits off in San Diego with instructions like disassemble the ship's boat, hump it up the mountains, take it down. You'll find it really useful when you need to trade with the indigenous population on the other side. Well, you know, it's a long walk. You eventually hit sand. It's called Nevada. And then you get a mere 2,400 miles till you reach water. They are still finding abandoned wooden boats in the Arizona desert, the Nevada desert, from Jesuits who were only trying to follow their instructions. That's expensive. A bad map is wrong. Eventually, the King of Spain made it a felony. It's treason to make a map of California as an island. The French knew that was a trick. This is an early 1700s Jean de Fer, and it still shows California as an island. What's my point? Blessedness is the ability to throw out maps. Sam Calagione, founder, president of Dogfish Head Brewer in Delaware, has just published his 2nd book. He has no map other than do that which has not been done ever, or that which has not been done recently. Midas Touch is a beer that anthropologists designed with him. It reconstructs a formula that hasn't been used in about 3,000 years. Worldwide, not that this is done only for artistic creativity. The guys at E-Types would love two things about him. One is he does whatever he truly believes in. Worldwide Imperial Stout sells for $160 to $200 a case. He can't make enough. I went in to buy a case. I had to interview for it. I went in to buy a second. Dick, I went in to buy a second case. I was found unworthy. Until I was able to describe it and put it in the context of comparable competing beers, I was not allowed to buy a second case because, at $160, you can't waste it on just anybody. That's great. Sir.
I wanted to add a story. I had a friend a few years ago with too much money who decided to buy an extremely expensive barbecue, a $15,000 stainless steel.
A Viking type thing.
Yeah, exactly, okay? And this began by seeing an ad in a magazine and corresponding with the guy who makes the barbecues. And the guy sent him by FedEx a foil packet of ribs to check out. So my friend, he reheated the ribs, ate them, called the guy, said, okay, how do I buy one? And the guy says, well, I only make barbecues for people I like. And at that point, they engaged in a discussion and actually eventually met face to face before the guy fabricated him this backyard barbecue.
No, that's a perfect story on about 4 levels. One is the way you sell a $15,000 barbecue or a $400 trash can is what I've been calling resonance marketing for the last 4 or 5 years. And it requires informativeness. If somebody says to me, those ribs are really good, I'd say, send me one. If somebody says to me, that beer is worth $250 a case, Deus, Cru de Flanders, I'd better be, it's a 12-bottle case, I really need to be convinced. Sending me ribs is one way to achieve the resonance. And then making sure the guy's worthy, because if the guy's worthy, and he said, I can't, not worthy, I can't tell the difference between this and any other $400 trash can, well, then you're destroyed. So it really, your story's great on about 4 levels. But notice what we've got. We have a blessed individual, Sam Calagione, making the best beer on the East Coast. Okay, we know blessed individuals exist. Is there such a thing as an innovative team? Are we still drawing the same deer? We've updated the lakes, but we're still drawing the same deer. Is California still an island? How do you mass produce blessedness? And how do you move from blessed individuals to blessed teams? And that was, for me, the most interesting aspect of the 2 cases this morning. Yeah, there's some process, and yeah, there are some RD individuals, and yeah, we got to keep the process and the individual happy. Can we make it routine enough to turn it into a business? Okay, so what's our questions? Can you actually construct an innovative team? I would put that on top of the questions like, when is innovation a process? When is it one-off? And the other issues that were addressed this morning. I will now, in keeping with the promise not to make lunch late, turn the discussion over to the panelists, each of whom will make an opening statement and introduce himself, starting with George, and then we'll throw this open to discussion from the group.
I'm George Westerman. I'm a IS researcher at MIT, and I look at especially innovation and leadership issues in IT. And I guess what I feel passionately about is this idea of building up the team. Is it individuals? Is it large teams? Is it small teams? What is it? I think what I feel passionately about is getting the mental map right. And that's why I thought it was so wonderful that you led with the mental maps. That, when we look at the Esterline case, and they were doing the back office innovation, they got small teams with that produced small innovations. Because they were people with a small worldview, and they did the best they could do, but they couldn't expand their mental maps. And so to push that into the leadership angle, one of the jobs of the leader should be to make sure that the team is constituted with the right mental maps, had the right people involved who can bring the right kinds of skills and worldviews to the story, and also maybe change the mandate to push their mental map a little farther than it needs to be if you need to do that. And so I see this as a combination of both the team and the leader.
Okay, I'm Subodh Kumar. I have been at University of Washington Business School for the last 5 years. I'm an IS researcher. Today, first I'll talk about what Eric was saying, that whether it's you need a team for innovation or it's an individual innovation. You certainly need a team for the innovation if you want a sustained innovation. And if we understand the innovation in terms of the impact, if you put time on the x-axis and impact on the y-axis, it's really like when you see a slope is very high, or if you see a big change in the impact, that's the point when you talk about the innovation, that there is something really happened. We all talk about the process innovation, product innovation, but the ultimate goal is that what is the overall impact of it? How is it impacting your customer or your value in some sense? And in order to do that, and if you want to sustain that, what you need to do is you need to have a group of people. You need to get idea from anywhere, wherever you can get. It can be internal, it can be external, it can be your team of employees, it can be your customers, or sometimes your competitors. Many good innovation which has impacted the business has come from your competitors. You grab the idea, adopt to what is good for you, and then you get the innovation. And another element that one must be careful is that what is going to feed to your innovation. There is no recipe for that, that what is good for one organization may not be good for others. In the Esterline case, one example was that at one point Esterline was trying to integrate their systems, and they tried to do ERP system. With this kind of ERP system or CRM, all these large projects which require a lot of integration in the system, you always need to be careful. Esterline was doing a lot of process changes or innovation, you can say, in terms of deploying lean. And we saw that IT was not really helping in doing that process. So you need to be careful whether these elements are helping or creating a problems for you. And for the same organization, it can be different at different point of time. For example, if Esterline tries to do something later down the road when their system is more stabilized, then maybe it's a good idea to use IT to integrate things, and then IT will help in the innovation. So we can use IT as the enabler of the innovation only when it gives you some results, it gives you the product. So in Esterline, we saw some problems. IT was not doing well. They had to scrap the project. But it was more like at what state the company was at that point of time. They were in the process of changing their process, going to lean. And many of these complex systems require more stabilized systems. So I'll feel that in summary, you need to know that how are you going to change the impact, how your impact is going to be significant, and the elements that you need to decide that not only depend on what kind of organization you are in, it also depends what is your true status at any given point of time. And if you want a sustained innovation, you need to be dynamic. You need to keep changing that. And again, you need to get the ideas from everywhere, anywhere possible to have a sustained innovation.
Hello, my name is Ralph Heidel. I'm a PhD student in the Technology Entrepreneurship program here at the University of Washington. And so I have an academic side, but I also have a professional background that kind of builds up the conceptualizations that I have of innovation, which is new application development in the ERP segment. So when I think about innovation, and when I kind of think back what Bob said about working with the customer, I'm thinking about recombination of knowledge elements. I'm thinking about the customer has something to contribute, some type of knowledge, and I think the technology segment or the enterprise or the innovator from that side has something to contribute. And I also subscribe to what you said, it's a team effort. And if it's a team effort and many people work together, then it's all about what Holly already mentioned, social interactions and keeping the dialogues between the members of the group active and alive and beneficial. And this is where I start really getting passionate about, because many things have changed in terms of innovation. We cannot really, in particular in the segment that I was active in, we cannot really rely on co-location of people anymore. People are really separated by space, by time zones, and that communication and social interaction is somewhat impaired in this situation. So some of the things that we took for granted really don't work as well as anymore, work the same way. And in particular, no co-location, so we are looking at innovative groups that are spanning organizations and spanning different groups within one corporation. And that innovation takes place often across technology boundaries. And I think the the key dimension that I feel passionate about is when the innovative process is spanning organizational boundaries and technology boundaries, and entrepreneurial ventures actually work together with larger companies in order to produce the innovative process. So that's what I'm looking at.
The questions I think we still have in front of us are, to what extent is it a synthetic continuous evolution, as opposed to when is it epochal, Steve, cladistic, a break? When is it the role of keeping key people very happy, because without those blessed individuals, Liz, you have nothing, versus to what extent is it in fact an engineerable process? To what extent is it a dialogue between people who know, and to what extent is it ignoring people who think they know, as in my friend Heinz and his return on strategic agility, consistently ignoring everything that the existing management team thinks about the valuation of the business he's working with. Those are really interesting questions. What I like to do is our most distinguished panelist is, of course, Dick Nolan or Rob Austin, and the two of them who put the cases in. So before we move on to sustainability, were there other issues, Dick, or Rob, that you had hoped we would find surface this morning as questions coming out of those two cases that we did not catch?
My sense is that as you summarize, it's fairly complete. There's the other issue, and I don't know exactly how to put it in the context, but is there such a thing as an innovation culture that exists in some companies and not other companies, or some teams and not in other teams?
You know, I would believe that there is. Suresh, please.
I think the discussion that we're having so far doesn't separate the outcome from the process. The innovation process is fraught with uncertainty. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. But what we can control as managers is the process. And the process is the context that many people raise. It's the culture that people raise. A lot of these have been done by large companies. 3M is a great example of having a process, but not focusing on the outcome. They know that every product that they try to come up with, there'll be 10 failures and only one success. But what managers tend to do is to focus on the outcome as opposed to the process, and saying, what is the process by which we can give this group some freedom to pursue a certain set of processes with a certain outcome, broad outcomes in mind that may or may not happen.
What causes an environment in which you either, as we said before, innovate or fail? Daniel?
I think it's important lesson to understand that creativity is not in people but in between people. And I think that's true for innovation as too, why the team is always crucial. And we can't really find an innovation process or a creative process where there is a single individual who carried something from an idea to an actuality. I think that's always a false retrospective story making in that case. So, and what we also found in innovation studies is that the heterogeneity is crucial to a team that is successful. So the point where it becomes a homogeneous group, it's on the kind of downslope to failing in terms of innovativeness and creativity. So I think that's a crucial aspect of how you grow an innovative culture to kind of safeguard the heterogeneity.
Daniel, do you think that's always true? Because Steve would argue that the very small innovation done for years between discontinuities in the pharmaceutical industry worked. Is there a point at which heterogeneity ceases to be an enabler and becomes lethal? Or would you argue it's always true that heterogeneity?
You don't really believe that there are no examples of great individually driven innovation stories.
No, I'm talking about the result of an innovation process. I mean, innovative individuals and creative individuals, of course, exist. But our problem here, I think, is not to understand how artists work or function, but how organizations become creative or innovative.
Well, I think one real important dividing line in a lot of these processes is a focus shift that often happens that you observe, which is the first focus is someone having fun and in a group producing something, and then they start to see the value, and the focus shifts to getting their share of the value, and that's the destruction of many organizations and many innovative processes. You see it in a succession of small businesses, but there are many other examples. A colleague of mine at Carnegie Mellon invented a substitute for chlorine. It took him 25 years of doing the dreariest possible form of chemistry. He had this idea for a catalyst. He's brought it, and now the business world is making it impossible to get it out there and replace that horrible chemical with enormous environmental damage with this catalyst that produces clear water. And it's because people are fighting with one another about the patents and all that other stuff. So the intellectual property domains get in the way of actually using the innovation. Within a company, it's quite a different process.
Well, although, of course, within a company, business units, okay, Sterling Drug owned Bayer. Sterling Drug also owned Panadol. And Sterling Drug decided not to introduce Panadol into the United States to avoid cannibalizing the market for Bayer. What is it? You all know the chemical of Panadol by a different corporate name. David, what is it?
Well, it's talent, acetaminophen.
What an interesting idea. So in order to avoid losing the Bayer market to Panadol, they created a huge market for somebody else, which is now a J&J company. There are the same questions of turf and resistance, but how do you anticipate the timing of de-skinnerization? How do you take a process that's been spectacularly successful for 3 generations and say now it's box-based trading? Anybody want to help with that? What are the leading indicators of a spectacularly relevant discontinuity? Rob, you moved. I caught that in my peripheral vision. Do you want to duck that one?
No, it sounds familiar because one of the arguments you hear people make about, and this is usually couched in terms of globalization and movement of routinizable, standardizable work offshore, that we kind of have the wrong reflexes as managers. That the way I usually put it with IT groups is our best trick in information technology has been chunk it, routinize it, digitize it, and automate it. And if that's all going to India now, what's our new best trick going to be, or China or whatever? And the problem is it's hard to figure that out, in part because chunk it, routinize it, digitize it, automate it has been so successful for us. So we've had all the wrong reinforcement. We've had all the wrong feedback.
We have been, if you will, rewarded for behavior that is no longer appropriate. Steve?
I know this session's about to come to an end. We're going to pick up these same themes this afternoon. But the distinction between we're talking about innovation in established companies. What the U.S. is great at is its entrepreneurial companies, and the guys who get most of our entrepreneurial ideas either come from established companies with guys who can't get the ideas implemented in their companies, or academics who get ideas and then team up with guys in business. We've got a fabulous venture capital support for this. We've got a fabulous risk-taking society, and the overwhelming number of epical innovations come out of new businesses created in the society that's geared to do that. Matter of fact, the big issue that we're talking about is the stifling nature of traditional business and its inability to support innovation within the confines of the existing business.
That is a great place to stop. As promised, we will break at exactly the right time. What Steve has said is corporations get great using maps that are the best available. When those maps are no longer appropriate, they're still putting the deer and the 2 bear in the same place. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.